Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all in this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. This is Rick Hanson, part of the group The Ricktastics. I have with me tonight Kelley Lovelace, and I have Ashley Kurtenbach, and Ricky Bruley. He must be missing the show. That's all I can say. I was gonna go down. I was gonna go down a different road there, but I won't. Like those people in bands that miss shows because they were doing other things. Yes. But we won't. He isn't. He actually is being a dad. But this is going to be a great conversation because I wanted to start out the new year with the New Year's resolutions, and I wanted to. Well, first of all, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
to everyone.
Happy New Year. Yeah.
This is going to be. How was your Christmases?
It was good. Christmas in the middle of the week is not great.
No.
First of all, the schedule, but second, I will say because it was in the middle. Jesse and I were here, spent it. Well, we did spend it with friends. That was nice. That's your family in a sense. But it was more relaxed than normal because I feel like when it's on a weekend, you're just like there's party after party and seeing this person and all the things. So it was nice. Yep. It was good.
How's yours, Kelley?
It was good. I got 4 kids and they were all home. Spent a week together. Did a little bit of first time I've ever gone spearing, like for Northerns.
Really?
Yeah. So we did some spearing with my son-in-laws and had a blast doing that. And
good.
Yeah. So it was a good Christmas. Yeah.
And I was in Alaska, which was very, very interesting, and it was I could never get acclimated, and it was cloudy every day. So even when the light came out, it wasn't light, and it was dark. Like at 10:30 to 4:30. I mean, between 10:40 and 4:30 is the only time you had light, and you were lucky. And I was tired all the time, but it was good because it was, first. It was the first Christmas I hung out with Cindy, and it was good. It's an adventure. But I want to talk about New Year's. And I've been thinking about this because I read a lot, and I've watched some news articles about it, and I've listened to some people talk about it. And I laugh at the people. I don't know what do you guys think of New Year's resolutions? And then I want to talk to you about where I'm going to go.
Kelley, you can start.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Appreciate that. Well, I don't really like them. I'm not a fan. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking forward and setting goals for yourself. I think a lot of times when I think of a New Year resolution, I shouldn't say we and lump you guys into that thought, but when I think of a New Year's resolution, I think of something that I want to accomplish it's like really big. And I focus on the really big thing without focusing on the little steps to get there. And I want it to happen now or quicker or sooner in that year. And a lot of times, like, if you really think about it, the goals that really mean something, you're not going to get them. You're not always going to get them done in a year. So there's just something about New Year's resolutions that bugs me. And so I look at the newness and try to set goals for myself in a lot of ways, but I don't want to call them New Year's resolutions. I think there's, with a New Year's resolution, you have some dedication, and commitment maybe, but there's a lack of consistency at times. And if you just would focus on them being goals, that consistency will come because it's over a period of time. It doesn't have to be 1 year. So anyway, that's my thought on all of that.
It's pretty close to where I'm at. I don't do a lot of 20. I set goals, but I think I set goals. But I'm constantly, but I don't just reserve it for the beginning of the year. Like, oh, this is when we start and this is when we end. Like, yes,
Right.
it's nice to hit those. Like you said, I just like to constantly work towards bettering yourself. Like, there are years that I will plow through books. Okay. I used to be a once a month, I'm going to have one done. Well, guess what? In 2024, that didn't happen. I still read a ton, but not as much as what I normally did. Working out, all those things. But like this year, Jesse and I are just working about even cleaning up. It'll probably really help when RFK is in office, but really cleaning up, eating, and getting rid of, some of the chemicals and the seed oil, things like that. Like really dialing that stuff in as we get older. We're starting to feel the aches and pains, and just knowing how some of those things are related. But that's not really a goal. It's kind of a forever lifestyle change. Like this year, we've done these things. What's the next step that we can look at and being bettering ourselves? But it's not like a goal like, oh, I'm going to get rid of all of this, and this year or something. I don't know. So I do set goals for work and personal, but I can't really say like I have New Year's resolutions that I'm trying to hit this year. And every time I will just say this, I feel like it's a curse. Whenever I said, oh, I want to maybe try and run a marathon this year, it's inevitable. I will tear a muscle, hurt my knee. It's like, no, if it happens, great. But I am not doing those. I'm not setting that stuff anymore. Like, no.
Right.
I'm good with goals. Goals here, now, whatever, 5 years, however long it takes.
Well, that's kind of where I was going because, 4 years ago, I got on top of a mountain and set a goal of climbing Crow Peak
That
100
was
times.
awesome. Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a New Year's resolution, but it was one that was goals. And New Year New Year's Day, I guess on Wednesday when I was climbing, even though I wasn't feeling the best when I found out, it's kind of funny, but I was thinking about this, and that's where I posted when I made that video about I don't want to be level. I hate that word level up
Mm-hmm.
because I want to be the best me. I don't want to be just level. And that's where I see level is. I want to be at the top of the mountain. I don't want to be at sea, you know. And also, I was thinking, and I look at people's posts, and and I'm not criticizing anybody, but I'm not paying rent to live on this world. We own the world, and when we are born, we sign the contract, and we're the owners of our own life, is what I'm trying to say. And where I'm going with that is the decisions we make are our own. And some are good, some are bad, and we all know that I've certainly made some bad decisions. I made some good decisions, but I got thinking about that. And I'm reading this Ryan Holiday book called Right Thing, Right Now, Good Values, Good Character, and Good Deeds. And I was thinking about instead of New Year's resolutions, I mean, there's things I want to do. And I want to start policing my time. I shouldn't say policing, but using my time more wisely in the aspect of technology. The phone is needed these days, but I get caught scrolling. I catch myself scrolling, I should say, longer than I should because I should be reading a book. I'm learning a lot about myself in that Right Things Right Now book. And I learned a lot about um, geez, what was the name of that book we were just read?
Extinction of experience.
Instinction of
Mm-hmm.
Experience about technology. And I was thinking, well, here's a quote from the book I wrote down here. Each of us has to make a decision right now about where we are going to put our efforts and what we are going to work towards. And that's not so much a resolution, because here's what I say every time you've been on here, and every time I kind of close, is be the best you. But what's the best you? And the New Year's resolution to me, being the best you, is finding that path every day. It's like you were saying, long-term goals. You know, it's not like, do I want to work out a little bit more? Yes, I do. Do I want to be more thankful for things? Do I want to be a better person all around? Because that's, and when I'm reading this, and I mean, Kelley could go into this too. It's like reading the Bible. It's like being you're bettering yourself every day, and it's about the character and the morals and the values that you carry. That's what people will remember you for, and and it's about making the decisions of honesty and being who you should be and who you can be instead of maybe who you are now. I don't want to see people fail because of something that I did in being mean, because I always try to cheer people on anyway. But, that kind of stuff. And so when I'm talking about that, like I said, technology, I want to maybe turn it down a little bit. I want to read a few more books. Do you know what's funny? When I went back from Alaska, because of not seeing the sun, because it was cloudy and it was dark and I was just in a mood. But getting back to South Dakota, where we have 3 more hours of light, and going for that walk that next morning, it was a total change.
Isn't that wild?
My mental change was amazing. And so here's my question. Instead of New Year's resolutions, should we say, how do we expand on becoming the best us?
Well, just be better in all aspects.
I,
It's
I think it's important to look at the potential of the new year. Matter of fact, that's my next sermon series is going to just be on new things. God talks about it in His Word, how He's bringing about a new thing. The old is gone, the old is behind us, and there's a new thing. Can you perceive it? Can you see it? And so, um, I I write a little article for our newspaper weekly, and that was something that I just kind of touched on for that article was, do we see it? Do we see the potential of what's coming at us, or are we focused on the negative stuff that we have to do, that we have to deal with, that we have to work through? Are we worried about problems? Are we trying to, the way I guess the best way to put it is, am I building a defensive structure around me, or am I being proactive and offensive in the way that I move my life? Because if I'm building defense up, I'm just trying to protect what I got. But if I'm thinking offensively, if I'm thinking proactively, I want to grow what I have. I don't want to just maintain and hold on to. I want to see that flourish. And so, do we perceive the potential of what this year might bring us, no matter what comes across our path? Excuse me. Ashley, you said something that was really funny because I think that happens to me a lot. It's like I make this major plan and something happens to bungle it up, and you're just like, why? Um, am I able to have this goal? Am I able to look forward and then whatever comes, let's say I pull that muscle, or I sprain that knee, or you know something crazy happens to me health wise, and I don't get to go on that hunt, or I don't get to go on that trip, or I don't, whatever that might be. Am I able to work through that in a positive way, or am I just gonna sit in my darkness, right? So I think that has to start at the beginning of the year. Um, this is one of the toughest months for me, and there's probably a lot of reasons. So I tell people this: the middle of January to the middle to end of February, I just like I kind of go through my winter blahs, and I get into this little funk if I'm not careful. It could be hunting seasons are over. And I don't get to hunt anymore for a while, and the next thing hasn't started for me. I don't know. I tell people what usually pulls me out of it is March Madness, basketball. I get to watch tons of basketball. I, I want to change that in my life. I don't want to have that downtime where I'm kind of in a funk and can't pull myself out of it, or I'm struggling to pull myself out of it to be more motivated. So I kind of connect with what you're talking about, Rick, when you're tired and there's no light and you're just kind of like that Alaska trip where you're 3 more hours of light's a big difference. Like we don't realize how big that is. That's why I was laughing, right? The light
Yeah.
matters. Um, so I just feel like if we can focus on that light and um, move forward, uh, I think that's a good thing. I told my wife and I told somebody else this. My wife's birthday is December 21st, and that is the winter solstice. Usually, that's the first day
Yep.
of winter. So for us, there's more light coming into our world after the 21st, and I tell her all the time, you bring light into the world, right? So we kind
Glimmer
of
of
focus.
hope.
Yes, yes, that glimmer of hope. The darkness is behind us. We're gaining now. So I just think that's important for us to see the gains, right? And to recognize those. Probably a little bit, I don't know if I can say this without laughing, too optimistic, an eternal optimist. Um, it it's for me to get really down is hard because I want to look at the good side of things, even in the times when we're struggling. There's something better coming, right? Like I'm not look past it, but through it and say, okay, we're going to deal with this because something better's down the road. So I think that if we can start off every year that way, it changes our outlook and our attitude. I hope that answered your question.
Well, kind of, I mean, I look at, because I was looking at other people's posts and they said 2024 was crap. You see, 2024 was great. You
Yeah,
see, all
that's funny. I was thinking the same
different
thing.
personalities have different
Hmm.
sides when difficulties come, and it's how we react to them. And
And you don't know what cards you're going to get dealt this year.
no, and it it, it's how we like I said, it's how I react, and I'm I want people to know that there are times like this, like you said, from the winter solstice to like mid February, when I always look, if I can get to March 1st, usually the cold is gone. Usually spring is
Yeah,
starting to hit here in the Black Hills.
yeah.
North Dakota, it's usually July, but anyway.
Right. We got a 4 day window it's called summer.
We get a taste of spring, and then April we get a blizzard from out of
Right.
nowhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are the days when I'm posting my morning posts or doing things like that. Is some days my post is picking me up as well as showing
Hmm.
people, because there's days that I am not prepared to write a post. I'm not in a good place. But when you get up early, you go for that little walk, you get that fresh air, and you start thinking about, we got another day and we can keep on moving forward, kind of thing. I mean, I climbed to the top of Crow Peak thinking about that a little bit. And then I climbed down, and it's funny because I didn't realize that I was sick until I got to the top, and then I knew I wasn't feeling well. And I got to the bottom and got home and said, this sucked. I mean, Cindy said, how was it? I said, this is the worst climb I've ever had. And it was in snow, and I thought it was that. And then I ended up having about 101.5-degree fever and just not feeling well. But we get over this stuff, and we have to start moving forward. And we have to believe that everybody is going to the best place they're supposed to be going. So set our goals for this year. And my goal this year is to be the best person I can be. There are hardships in every year that we have, and it doesn't matter who you are. You're going to have hardships but we have to realize that they help us grow. Maybe that's my point. Not all years are bad. Maybe an hour is bad, or maybe a day is bad, but not all years are bad.
Right.
You know, I mean, Kelley will have to say, like, someday the Chicago Bears will make the playoffs.
Someday. Yes, someday.
Um, I think
Someday.
kind of on what you both said, but leaving that in the past, Kelley, you mentioned that, and like moving on. And I think everybody likes a good reset, whether you've had a good year or a bad year.
Hmm.
The previous year, I think people are ready for something new. It gives us hope. It gives us something to look forward to. You're talking about setting boundaries, whether that's with yourself and your phone or whatever. I've had to get better at that because obviously I open myself up to being busy. So, Jesse's like, do you ever say no? I'm like, you'd be surprised how many times I do actually say no. But
Hmm.
it is a thing I have to constantly work on because I will immediately look at my schedule and fill that up. And I don't think I'm not alone there. There's a lot of people who are like, well, I'm free technically, so let's fill it in. So I think that's a thing that you kind of touched on. But, I like looking forward to the positive things, and I don't know what I'm going to be dealt. It's coming. You just don't know when or what year you're going to have to deal with it. And some people, it seems like they stand up, they recover, and then they just get hammered again and
Hmm.
again and again and again. And you don't know if it's going to be this year or not. You try and look positive. One thing I did notice, so I have a life coach that I've met with, and I was very, he tries to dig out financial um goals, everything, financial, personal, relationships, spiritual, all those things. And this year, I don't know what it is, but my answers were totally different. So normally on like as a Christian on a spiritual level, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this devotional or read this more or read or yada yada yada. And honestly, my whole mind shifted. And this year, I think, because they say after 40, you start getting no filter. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but you just stop caring and you just start spurting out like what you think. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to try and let things bother me this year. I'm going to have tough conversations, but I'm going to really try hard in being the biggest person that I can be in conversations, whether it's business or in with friends, just trying to be nice and like I don't know how to say it, but that is something I wrote down is just being as nice as I can without I'm still not going to get walked over. I mean, if you know me, you know that that's not happening. but um but to try to handle situations without uttering things underneath my breath or letting things continue to bother me. Like, I'm going to tell you if something you said bothers me at the right time, and then we're going to move. And then I just want to move on because I don't want to harbor this stuff for more than minutes if I don't have to. That was one thing I wrote down. And then consistently across the board, he kept asking, what made you happy in 2024? What made you happy? What made you happy? What made you happy? And literally, the thing that kept coming to my brain was traveling. And it was like the trip with my parents that I made this year. That was incredible. And I don't think I gave it enough weight in the time as to how important that was. And then I questioned, did I live in the moment? I was like, no, I did. I remember being kind of stressed on that trip because I had just started kind of getting into real estate and things like that. And I was like panicking a little bit about being gone and being out of service. But then I was like, it's all these things just kind of work out and it's going to be fine. But consistently traveling, getting to see our friends that live in Utah, in Oregon, like Colorado, whatever it was, that was consistent across the board. So what do I need to do in 2025 to be happy, to set goals, to look forward to things? Travel, apparently, because that is the one thing that made me just happiness, like friends, family,
Mhm.
whatever it was. So now I know I'm taking that into 2025 and really making it a priority. Like, no, I'm not too busy. Like, yes, I can do a weekend away. And then I thought of surprising one of my best friends. She had not a good year. She was one of those that was dealt a crap load of just crap. And I was like, you know what? She's never been to this place. I may just call her and say, hey, what are you doing Thursday through Sunday? Let's go here and let's just have a weekend away. Like, no plans. Because I know that would be time well spent with her and for our friendship. And then also getting to do what makes a lot of people happy, like a mini vacation. And I don't think I should tell her so that she can't give me any excuses why she can't go, you know? But those are things I was a little surprised when he was asking me questions. Like, honestly, I didn't think those were going to be my answers at all. But, and, and so to go back to being a good person and being like, basically Christ-like, it was like that is going to be my devotion for my spiritual growth this year, is to be a resounding example constantly of that is a good that's what a good human looks like
Mm.
that is what I want to try and be, is model that every day and not try and eye roll when you're annoyed or say things underneath your breath. things like things like that,
Right.
those little things, to be better that way.
Because I don't want to. It's funny that we're going in this direction because I see this and I don't want to criticize people when it's my opinion, because you live in your
Right.
life, you live in your life. I may not want to go in those directions at
Right.
times, but I can't criticize you, but we're still friends. But you're right on the. Here's one thing with Cindy that drives me nuts. And we talked about this too. And I said, I want to go on a trip where you do not look at your phone and see where we're going. I do not want Google Maps to come out because that bothers me. Because that takes away the adventure to me. Like, if I need to get to somewhere, that's fine.
You're gonna give her so much anxiety.
Yeah. But I want us to look around. Too many people are looking at, we talked about this, looking at their Google Maps and not looking around. And not that she's doing that, but I want to have the adventure and the conversation. And it's also about making the memories. And it's interesting that you said that, because traveling and seeing people are important to me, becoming more important because of I really want to get to Florida and see one of my friends I haven't seen since I was in college. I want to you I understand that we can stay connected through social media, through a lot of different
It's
means
not the
this year,
same.
but it's not the same.
It's not.
This is one thing we needed to plan on, like somewhere before March Madness comes along, is to go up and see Kelley in Oaks, North Dakota,
There you
and do
go.
a podcast. Yeah, I think that would be fun
That would be fun.
in person, all three of
Yeah.
us, four of
Yeah.
us, whatever, because all of our trips together and all of our time together, and maybe that's why some things hit me harder than others, but you don't realize how short this time on Earth is. And let's influence as many people as we can, and let's say hi, and let's go on that trip, and let's share some bread and conversation.
Perfect. That sounds great. See,
Mm.
that's
I,
another goal.
yeah,
2025.
I think that what life is teaching me, and I've been in this leg of the journey, I think, for probably a couple of years now, is just to slow down, to mentally force myself to slow down, right? Um, I think we we get at least I do. I get focused on hitting that goal, and I want it to happen now, right? I'm going to work really hard to get that goal off my list as soon as possible. And in those moments, I'm I'm looking at Google Maps, and I'm not looking around, and I'm not seeing what's going on in the periphery, right? My peripheral. Slowing down helps me to see better. This isn't a blur. This stuff out here doesn't blur by because I'm so locked in. And I'm not saying that focus isn't a good thing. I just think that being busy doesn't always mean you're productive. And we
Exactly.
allow, right? We allow that to kind of cyclone in our life. And so, oh man, how are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. It doesn't mean I'm productive. It means
Everybody
that,
says that.
right? I've been
Everybody.
so busy, and I don't want that to be my answer, right? And so, I think a question that really rings true for me, it hits me at my core is what do you want? What are your priorities? Like, what do you want? I get it. Like, I want to be successful in what I'm doing, but I don't want to be successful at the expense of relationship.
What do you
Uh,
want and
it
what do you need?
right. Right. And how can we get those two things to kind of, like, if they're two circles, how can we get them to line up? I don't think you ever get them completely like solid, clear circles, but they get close. Like you got this oblong blur with two circles in it because they're touching what you want and what you need. And so if we can get to that point, I think that's a good goal to try to get those two things to come together. For me, relationships are becoming more and more and more and more important, especially as I see my kids grow up, as I see grandkids come along. I'm in that grandkid age. I got two grandkids now. It's just things have started to change for me, and so instead of having to get to that meeting or have to get that thing done or have to get those numbers turned in or get this report taken care of, I'm starting to realize that those things stole. I allowed them to steal opportunities to build better relationships. I got so focused on that. And then here's the sucky part of that. We allow we allow that stuff to begin to define us. Like, I'm productive. I got my stuff done. I'm in order. That's who I am. Well, I don't want that to be my definition. It goes back to who I'm wanting to be. Like, who do I want to be? Um, I say this to people all the time. Again, it's these circles. We all know who we are. I believe that. Like, if we look in the mirror, we know our deepest, darkest junk. The stuff that we don't want other people to see, we're really good at hiding. So we know ourselves in that way. And then we there's this person we want to be, and then there's the person that we should be, right? Like we hear, well, you should be more like this, or you should be more like that. Well, if who I want to be doesn't line up with that, is that wrong? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So if I can get all three of those things, who I am, who I want to be, and who I should be, again, to come into focus better, I'm meeting my goal. Like that, I'm becoming better every day. I'm moving towards something. I'm growing. I don't think there's any place where you can just sit and maintain. I think you have to grow, and if you're not growing, you're dying. If if
100.
if, if you're not growing, you're dying. So
I agree 100% there.
So
It's
instead of
amazing.
resolutions, how can we grow this next year? What is it we can do to help myself expand and grow? It might be uncomfortable. It might be hard. It might be uh, something that's way outside my skill set or my comfort zone or you know, but if it's needed to help me become better and grow, then I need to focus on those things. So,
And do you think us saying we're busy is making us self important? Not so much like,
Yeah.
I'm so busy, I'm self important, instead of, you know, taking that time out for others and showing that they're important too. Um,
I think part of the busy is people have started using that as a response because it immediately shuts down any further questions. I don't know if you've noticed that, but even if you watch total strangers say, hey, how have you been? If you're hearing a conversation off to the side, just watch. And they're like, oh man, we've been so busy. Yeah, I hear you. That's like, that is the response. And it's shut down immediately instead of going, I have tried to, before in conversations when I know that that's where it's going, it's like, oh no, let me tell you what I've been busy doing. So you don't think I'm just, because it is, people are just pushing it off as to, and then it's almost like you shut down the question and maybe they weren't really caring what you were doing. But, it's like, oh, with work and hunting or whatever it might be, like this is what we've been doing, or try and throw a nugget out there at least. Well, and it's part of conversation, but it is interesting when someone says, well, I'm busy. It just immediately shuts the conversation down. No one even questions it. I get it. I'm busy too. And that's it. We're not like, that's it. It's so interesting.
I think it shuts the conversation down, and it shuts down any opportunity to invest in a relationship.
Yes.
Right?
That's where I was going.
Because if you said you were not busy, I'd be like, well, let's go hang out then. And you're like, no, I don't have time for that.
Right.
Because it's truly interesting that you're saying this, because here's the deal. I mean, and I get angry maybe at myself, but, I know you're busy. I know you're busy. I'm looking at Kelley here if you're not listening, but here's the problem that I have, or any people that I think are close, is my problem is I know you're busy, and I'm not trying to contact you as much because I feel I'm not going to try to jump into a conversation because I know you're busy doing other things. And then that starts like you start pulling away because I feel that you're too busy. You know what I mean? You're too busy for me, and I'm not going to bother you anymore. So then you guys may think that I'm busy, but I'm not as busy, but I'm just trying to say, you know what? I know they're busy. I'm not going to bother them.
It's an awful thing to try and balance. It really is.
And it is. And sometimes I get hurt because I feel like if I haven't talked to you guys for sometimes a couple of weeks, and we haven't even texted, it's like, do I text? They're too busy for me. That kind of stuff that's like, have they forgot about me? That kind of stuff, because you know what I mean? I'm not going to step on somebody's toes. I feel sometimes I think I'm being selfless, but then sometimes I want to be selfish because I want to have that alone time with you guys or have those conversations, like.
Let me flip that on you. What if you're being selfish by not making the contact? Because you don't want to feel awkward, or you don't want to feel,
look at the
you know what I mean?
time you spent thinking about that.
Yeah.
Just send the text. Just call.
Yeah, right. And I'm not in that way. Like if you come to a vine, I'm going to text you. I've gotten out of that mode. Like there's people that go, "Oh, I know you're busy," and I'm like, if you call me and I don't answer, I'm going to call you back. Right? You're not bothering me.
Right.
You're not taking time. If I'm not able to talk to you, I won't answer or I won't respond right away, but I will respond. Like I will get back with you. I don't want you to feel like you're taking anything from me. I just had this conversation with a guy today. He's like, "Oh, I don't want to take your time." I go, "You're not taking time. It's a gift, and I'm giving it because this matters. Like this relationship matters. You matter. You're important. If we say something's important and then we don't give attention or time or resources to it, then it's not important." That's just the bottom line, right?
Yes, I have gotten better I have 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes. I've gotten better at that. Also, there are conversations, like you've called me a lot when I'm working out, and I'm like, you know what? It's fine, because if I can't do it simultaneously, then I will let you know, but I'll just like, hey, I'm working out, so that like if I'm on a breath, it's probably because I'm on the treadmill.
Yeah.
But I'm here to listen. I can still listen. I can still have a conversation with you, but I've gotten better at saying like, yes, I'll take your call. I am doing this on the sideline. So if you need me to really pay attention, you should probably say, hey, I need you to listen to me real close.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. You know, I mean, sometimes I think besides me, I think other people. I think that's where we start pulling apart
Oh,
that circle,
absolutely.
and that's where you sometimes feel lost. But I think in this, I think that's where your circles start getting smaller and smaller
Yeah.
because they've either they've been pulled apart or whatever else has happened. But you know, I talk like I said, I talk to you guys, so I'm happy. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
Or your
put you.
No,
communication gets real strong
right.
because you
No,
can just say, "Is there a good time to talk to you?"
right, right.
9 o'clock tomorrow night.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't speaking at just you, Rick. There's a lot of people in my life that say that to me a lot. Like they're like, "Well, I don't want to bug you. I know you're busy," and I'm like, "I'm not too busy, right? Like I don't want anybody to ever look at Kelley was too busy to talk to me, or Kelley was too busy to answer a text, or Kelley was too busy to meet with me. I don't ever want that to be said of Kelley, right? And then people think that, like, and I've got people in my church, I've got friends, oh, I know you're busy. I don't want to bug you. I didn't want to bug you about it. And I'm like, dude, it's okay to bug me. Like, bug me. You're not bugging me at all. It's part of it. And there's people that I contact and they don't get back in touch with me for weeks. And I'm like, well, when they're able, they'll call me. I'm not flipping out about it.
Sometimes
Right?
I'm that person. I just forget. Sometimes
Mm,
I just forget,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden I remember. I'm like, "Oh shoot, call him."
Yeah.
but you know, I mean, and it's funny, you know. I think you were talking about when you get older and how you have no filter, but I think you become more confident in yourself too.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
because I look at it in terms. I saw this somewhere. Like when you're confident, there's the difference between confidence and arrogance is when you're confident with yourself, you don't have to say anything. But when you're arrogant, you have to tell everybody that you're confident with yourself. I have to tell you. I'm confident that you'll get back to me. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think that the filter part is you're getting Rick. And sometimes I don't have a filter, but I always try to be that nice person though. The
Right.
the filter part is maybe making you see things that maybe you didn't see. And it's not I I don't know where to go with that, but I'm saying like sometimes I try to be honest with what I see, and it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
part of the filter. You can be honest and you can still have your opinion like we talked about, but you can also be open-minded. And part of that as we get older, we get so ground in like these are my likes, these are my dislikes, this is how I am. And we can make excuses for that, but I think with like having a filter or whether it goes away, like my goal is always just trying to convey like when I'm trying to get a point across, maybe doing it as eloquently as I can without just blurting out exactly what we're probably all thinking.
mhm.
Things like that. I've seen my parents do it. I've even made the comment, "Mom, you're turning into grandma." That didn't go over so well because she sees it from that generation and I'm seeing it like trickle down. I'm like, "Oh, it's inevitable." And I've
I
told
pray that's
you,
not true.
oh, I know. But I've told you about the time that I was with my mom shopping in Target. Like this was probably 10 years ago. And it serious loss of filter. And I will never forget this. And I looked at her and my mouth hit the ground because she was frustrated with something at the checkout, and I'll never forget this. And she was like, "Well, geez, can't you do anything about it?" I was like, "Mom, this lady is checking you out. She's getting paid like $11 an hour. You think she cares? She can't do anything about it. Just leave her alone." And my mom
Right.
is just like, "Oh my God," made her feel horrible. And this gal checking her out, I will never like forget this. It was just rattled. My mom had her rattled, and my mom was doing the eye roll, and I was like, this is not okay. Immediately, this is not okay. I was like, "Mom,
Right.
stop. And she's like, well, this is frustrating to me. I said, yeah, but do you think that this lady has anything to do with it? Like, she doesn't care, or can't she? And she can't do anything. I was like, if you want this fixed, then you're going to have to go find a manager. She's like, well, I don't have time for that. Okay, well, then you got to accept with where we're at with things. Like,
Right.
and keep your comments. This is what I'm talking about with the filter. I'm really trying as I go, like, keep your comments to yourself and don't say anything. Like, you just made this lady feel terrible. You are the reason people quit jobs like this. And, like, oh my God, I was mortified in line, mortified. Then I get my stuff and I go up, I'm looking at the lady. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, my poor mom just ripped you up and down for something you have zero control over because she was mad about whatever. I don't even remember what it was. And that's why I was like, this is petty. This is petty.
Yeah.
Learn how to take a breath and just swallow those things. Swallow it and be the bigger person and move along.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a difference. And if we could figure out how to separate tact and terror, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I could just be tactful and respectful in that moment instead of being the terror in that moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
It changes things immensely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. Like, I see my mom and dad now. They're 80 and 79, 81. And so I see some of that come out, and you're just like, oh,
Right.
why?
You
I
have
don't
to
want to be that.
consciously think,
Right.
yeah, but you have to consciously think about those things because otherwise you'll just blurt it out. Like it takes a conscious effort to just not be like. I had one person I did business with recently who was a complete jerk to me, and it took everything in my being not to put this person in their place. I was like, if your clients knew how you really were, they would never work with you. And it's taken everything in me not to go online and just expose you. But I'm going to excuse this as you're having a bad day. I'm still going to kill you with kindness, and I'm going to swallow everything I want to say to you because you deserve to hear it. But whatever, I'm going to let this play out. But it's things like that that I'm talking about, like really trying to hone in. Because as you get older, like I said, you have an opinion and you just want to just lay it out there sometimes. And to just swallow it. To be the bigger person is so much.
I'm the bull in the china shop. Like, I used to just absolutely fire back. Like, that's the fighter in me, like, you're coming at me, I'm coming back. Like, boom.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that I will honor that other person. This is rough. It's hard to do that in that moment because it feels so personal. But to honor them, that's not a reflection of their character and them as a person or the power they have. It's a reflection of my character for me to honor them in that kind of situation. And what I've learned is, so I had a really wise guy in my life, a wise man in my life, and he's an old Ozarks hillbilly. And he came up to me one day and he said, Kelley, when you're arguing with an idiot, what do people who are walking by see? And I go, I don't know, Danny, what do they see? And he said, two idiots arguing.
It's true.
Right? There's a lot of wisdom there. So if I could just be honorable and the word reaction, I think Rick said react in the moment. I want to learn how to train myself to respond in the moment. And maybe I've talked to you guys about this before, but I want to respond. And if I can respond in an honorable way, then I don't have to worry about the reaction part. And usually it's the reaction that causes the explosion. That's why they call them nuclear reactors and not nuclear responders, because the reaction creates energy that, boom, blows up. And so if I can respond in that moment, it's way better, right? Like the whole situation. And instead of seeing two idiots arguing, they see one idiot behaving like an idiot. I think the word they use now is it Karen for the ladies? And right? And what is it I don't know. They call the guys who act like that.
I think it's dick.
Something else. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, right? Like they're going to see that aspect of it. And so if I can behave and respond and live in a way that shows honor and respect, and show people what my character is, I don't have to defend myself with words, or my actions, the way I live my life will be enough. Does that make
Right.
sense?
And
It,
I don't want to have that pain of regret going, God, why did I say that? That was so
Right,
stupid. Because it feels good in the
right.
moment and you're like, oh, I'm relieved of this. But then 10 minutes later, you're like, oh, why?
That's
I
gonna
can't
bite
take
me in the
it back.
rear.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
So I that is what I was talking about earlier with setting my goals. It just looked like very different, and I've set
Uh-huh.
the intention now. But I've been doing that. I feel really good about it, but going into 2025 really, like, cuz I know when you get stressed too, and then someone, like you said, you become the fighter, and someone's pushing you up against the wall, and you're like, I just want to claw your eyes out sometimes,
Hmm.
and I'm going to not do that right now.
Yes.
Take a step back. So things like that, I'm really trying to be the better person there. That'll make me better, I would
well,
hope.
he- it's amazing. This is why I love having our conversations with everybody here, because my problem, and this is how maybe I can become that better person, because there are those certain people that you know are going to say something.
Oh,
You're going in defensive already. You know,
Mm.
that hair on the back of your neck,
yeah,
you're already prepared for a
I
fight
like them.
because they're going to say something stupid. And I just like, there's been times that I just have to say something back. And I'm trying to be more logical thinking, but it's one of those things. It's like this year I'm going to try to have better thoughts and speak a little bit better, because as you said, 10 minutes later after we have this conversation, I walk out and I said, oh
Why
my
did I
god,
say that?
why did I say this stuff? And I don't want to do that, because that eats me up. Those are like little piranhas nipping at me then for like a couple days, because then I feel the conversation isn't over because I said some stupid stuff. Now I need to apologize
Then you
even though I
gotta
don't want to.
re-drag it back
You know
up.
what I mean? And I don't
Hmm.
want those little piranhas just snipping at you,
No,
you know, just taking little bites out of you.
just want to move on.
I do.
I
And there's
can't.
and I and it's kind of like some days as you guys all know, I like to have that conversation, but I like to know the conversation's finished. And sometimes some other people are finished the conversation, and I'm still like out there in space, like eh,
Different.
I just wanted to finish this stuff, you know. And you may have finished it, but I didn't. And I just need to learn that to let some of that stuff go, because if you're done talking, there's done talking.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's interesting. I always see different people. I have friends who can harbor a conversation that I will have long forgotten about. That doesn't bother me, or I will have someone say something to me that was supposed to be a dig on me, and I just let it go. Never even gave light to it because clearly it didn't bother me. And I've had friends dig that back up and go, well, that was a dig towards you, right? And I'm like, why are you still thinking about that? Now I got to go back and look at it differently. And I was like, who said that? I was like,
Right.
things like that. It's interesting how some people, and I think that may have to do with either growing up or maybe some sort of trauma, or I don't know. I don't have that. So I will have friends that have to bring stuff up like, hey, this really, I don't feel like we finished. And I will say, okay, like, I didn't know that this was so I wish people would just bring it up sooner, because I will go living my life and not pay any attention to things, because a lot of times, I'm not going to lie, some of them are very small. Some things are very small, and maybe it was a play on words or how it was said, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot long about that. Like, that doesn't bother me. They're like, oh god, it was really eating at me. I'm like, oh well, that's probably why we're friends, because I just like,
Yeah.
it's gone, it's gone. I'm not thinking about that. But I think not harboring that stuff, if that
Yeah.
bothers you, then yes, bring it up. But if you can be in the moment and just take a deep breath before you say those things. I've really worked on that, and it is paid off every single time by just not saying it. But if you keep coming at me and keep coming at me and you're a jerk, I am probably going to say something that's going to hurt your widow feelings.
Mhm.
Like,
See,
but
see,
I'm not going to be backed into a corner like that.
I think people define maybe relationship or loyalty based on whether you're in conflict or not. When really loyalty and relationship with that isn't based on whether you're in conflict or not. It's based on whether you're willing to work through that conflict with that person. That's loyalty. For you to come to me and say we've got a problem and I need to talk about it, right? Not if you don't want to be in a relationship with me because we're in conflict over something, wow, we're gonna not be friends very
Yeah.
long because we're not going to agree on everything, right? And so if I can
No.
figure out, yeah, if I can figure out how to have those conversations or be open to them and encourage those who are in my circles to talk to me and communicate, like let's talk about it. Don't hold on to it. Let's talk about it. And so I'm different. I want to talk about it, get over it, move forward. Right? Like boom.
Yeah.
I'm married to a lady who has to think about it. She's an internal processor. And so she's going to
Mhm.
need a few days to kind of work it out and come up with the way to say how she's feeling.
Oh,
And I've got to realize that.
so
And so, and
true.
right in my relationships with people, we've got external or verbal processors, and we've got internal or thinking processors mulling it over. If I have a problem with you, Ashley, and I don't know how to talk to you about it, I'm going to go to Rick and talk about it to find out what his thoughts are, so that I can come to you and get done with it. I'm going to process it verbally.
Yep.
My
And I do
wife's not
that a
like
lot.
that. My wife won't go to anybody and talk about it. She's gonna find a nice quiet place. She's gonna sit down. She's gonna work through it. She might read a book or she might listen to somebody else who's got a podcast that's talking about this issue, and then she's gonna come to me and talk about it, right? And that's just people. Like we're built that way. We're verbal or external processors versus internal processors, and so if I can understand that about that other person, that helps, right? And
Yeah.
so when it comes up, I've been thinking about this for a long time. Oh, you're an internal processor.
Yeah.
I'm
And
external.
certain,
I'm done with it.
yeah. And certain times I think you process it external or internal, because I'll just straight up, I've been really good with Jesse too, like as my spouse, like little things that I like I said, I'm very good at moving along, but I've been very good like when I know he stack things or things are stacking like building
Mhm.
blocks in my head, like, oh, that kind of stung a little bit, or or he said this. I have gone to him now and said, hey, this happened this week, a couple of things, not even same day, but I can tell that they're hanging out somewhere rent free in my head. And I will just say, when you say things like that and then they stack, I start to have like this resentment. And so if you can just think about it before you say things like that, because they are holding more weight than probably you even meant to give them. And I will bring it up at the weirdest times to him where we're not even having like a conversation, and it will just pop into my head like, oh yeah, I was going to tell him. And by doing that, I think if you do that with friendships too, people then become aware and your communication is so much better and than harboring so much weight on you
Mhm.
that you're like, you don't even know how much you're carrying around. But when I've set that precedent in our marriage, it has helped immensely just to say, when things are not fired up and you're not arguing and you're not even having a conversation about what you're going to do next, by saying those things. And then I've done that with friends as well, like, hey, just so you know, like when you said that, did you mean it like that, or like what?
Yeah.
But that, so if it does stick with me, it's usually something I didn't even know I was giving as much weight to. But I have noticed when I do figure that out, if I say something, it does help, and it helps to not dive like the next tiff you may have between each other. It doesn't escalate because there's not a
Yeah.
slow burn of
Yeah.
resentment in the
Right.
background.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we've learned over the whole New Year resolution thing that we're just trying to be the best people we can be.
Yeah, every
That's
day.
right.
And we all have directions to go. It's kind of because here's where I was going to go. with the resolution thing is I think we can make resolutions about being the best us. But like you said, it's a goal. I don't think we should ever knock people for making resolutions because look at some people say they're going to stop smoking on January 1st and they stop. They're
Right.
done.
Mm-hmm.
They set that time.
Yeah, some people need that hard reset.
In
Yep.
some, but there's other goals like I want Don't Die Rusty to keep building. I mean, that's a goal. That's not a resolution, but that's a goal. I want it to keep getting bigger, and I want it to start affecting more and more people. I want it. I look at a resolution sometime as like you go to a movie and it builds up to that one point. We might as well talk about say we'll just say Rocky. You know what I mean? And he's building up, and when it gets to the point where he has to decide is he going to fight or is he going to get his butt beat? And Adrian has to say go kick his butt, and then da 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 starts going. And I think there's points in everybody's life where we get to that point where we've built up. Now it's to make the decision: are we going to go down the hill, or are we going to keep on climbing and then hit the top of the mountain? And those are the decisions we make throughout this resolution thing. But it's also the best thing is about being the best person you can be, and making the good moral choices and the good values and do good deeds and lift the people up around you and help that circle. The question to me is, it's like at work, in anybody's work, is how do you make the people around you better?
Yeah.
That's another thing to do. And I look at people that want to be number one, but to be number one isn't truly being number one if you aren't helping people around you be better.
Yeah.
It you can have a great quarterback, but you need the lineman, or you're just or in any game.
Do you know what I've been asking myself?
Huh.
So like when in setting goals for this year too, anytime I have a team, like did I lead them appropriately? Like, is this a miscommunication on me as a leader? Did I lead them correctly? And then instead of always setting sales goals, and then they say, okay, set a sales goal, then you dwindle down all to the little things. Honestly, I look at the clients and the customers I serve in a number of positions, right? I just look at it and say, did I serve them appropriately? Because if I did, I don't like you will hit, but it really comes down to that, like you're talking about, like, am I making people better around me? Yeah. Am I serving people the way they should be? Treat them well. Am I working hard? Am I, the things, am I managing my time to best help me and them? Things like that. I think when you really look at it down to that, instead of putting, you do need those goals and things like that with numbers or whatever it might be if you're in sales or whatever. But when it really dials down to it, I always look at the base of that. And then that's part of my like 2025, not resolution, but goal is to be the best I can be, like really choose words, be open-minded, things like that.
Mhm.
Like that's how I bring it full circle versus having, in 2025, this like resolution.
Well, the the greatest people that we know, like these big names that we hear, these people that really impacted the world, they figured out how to elevate others around them, right? How to lift them up. And they realized, I believe this, they realized they could not do it on their own. Like they couldn't do it all by themselves. And so when we talk about great, even historical figures or just whoever that might be, like, you used athletics, Rick, so I'm going to use like Larry Bird. Most people don't know this stat about Larry Bird, but before he went to the Celtics, they weren't even 500. And then next year they were in their conference championship
Hmm.
his first year,
Crazy.
right? He had a way of elevating those people around him. Magic Johnson's the same way. I would say Michael Jordan was the same way. You just look at some of these basketball players that could do that. If you start talking about like people, so Elon Musk didn't get where he's at all by himself. There were
Right.
people
No.
that poured into him. There was a group of them, and then he elevated, and he's elevating people around him all the time. You could say the same for Donald Trump. You could say the same for Bill Gates. You don't have to agree with their life philosophies, but the bottom line is they figured out how to elevate the people around them, right?
And, yeah. And
So
that's where I think most people need to go.
can we do that with the people that we influence? And I think if we set that as a goal, like how can I elevate those people around me? Um, and a lot of times it's really simple stuff. The serving idea, coming in focused, coming in ready to go, coming in as an example, showing them, communicating with them what's expected, right? Like those are ways to help elevate others around us, pouring into them. The term is servant leader, and it's two words that you bring together, and you're like, well, those don't seem like they should fit. But if we can figure out how to be a servant leader, then we're gonna elevate people around me. And this is the best way to look at it, I think. I remember being out on the prairie above Belfouche, and I ran into this guy on a horse. I was hunting antelope. He was on a horse with a dog, and they were moving probably 200 head of sheep. And that dog was busy, man, going back and forth, going back and forth. And that guy was on his horse, going back and forth, pushing these sheep. And then I remember being in Montana, and I ran into a guy who didn't have a dog. He had a walking stick, and wherever he went, the sheep followed him.
Hmm.
He didn't have to drive them; they followed him. And I asked tons of questions, and he told me he took his philosophy from the Middle Eastern way of herding sheep. And I go, well, what does that mean? Right? And he goes, well, you keep the older ewes as long as you can, because the older ewes will teach the lambs you're the one to follow. And if
Hmm.
I can pour into those sheep and teach them, they'll pour into the next generation and the next generation. And then the sheep just follow me wherever I go. And I put oil on there and antibiotics on their cuts. I, I find them water that's not bad. I'll take them to new pastures. They follow me. And I thought, that's crazy, right? So there's a difference between the way Europe and Asia handle sheep and us good old Western folks from America. Um, I want to be the person that serves in such a way that people see me as a leader, not because I drive them to get to a place or to finish a goal, but because I'm serving them along the way as we get there. That's a huge difference, right? So that's kind of my definition. I use that story as that definition for leadership, servant leadership, and what it looks like. The old Middle Eastern shepherds, uh, they lived with those sheep all the time. So we just came out of Christmas, and we hear about the angels singing on high and telling the shepherds who were with their sheep. Well, they were with the flocks. Why? That's where they lived. They spent all their time with those sheep. And those sheep weren't yearlings or 2 year olds or 3 year olds. Most of the sheep were 6, 7, 8, and they knew their shepherd. Jesus talks about his relationship with us that way, shepherd and sheep. My sheep know my voice. Why? Because I've been with them and I serve them and I love them. And it's crazy. Like when you start thinking about the way we impact others, are we driving them or are we leading them? So
Well,
that's what I think.
once again, words of wisdom from Kelley
Yeah,
Lovelace.
Ah,
exactly.
Yes, because I those are the things that just hit me hard. I go through the episode when I'm editing it, and I go, "Dang, I needed to hear that again."
Yeah.
You bring out this is why I love having these, Kelley, is because you get me thinking about this, and you get other people thinking about it, and now I'm I'm off in space here a little bit, but no, thank you so much, because that's why I'm happy to have you call you a friend too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, God brings us together for a reason, right?
Yeah, he does. So I'm going to let you guys go here. I'm going to ask you though, just give us a little insight and some goals for the year, because I know what the good life is. We've talked about it a few times. Maybe some other time we'll talk about the good life. What's the good life? But let's, since this is a New Year's episode, let's think about some goals we can share with other people. You don't have to tell me other goals, that you don't want to share with anybody. But what direction do we want to go?
Well, I said that I want to try and be the best person by watching the filter, all those things. That was one. Um, Traveling, I said that. And healthier, I'm just really diving into like things that I can do better, whether that's physically or eliminating something from the list of foods or whatever. Those are just a few things.
Yeah. How about you, Kelley?
I want to, one of my goals is to spend more time building relationships, starting with family, uh, my son-in-laws, my kids. Um, and then this is, it sounds kind of resolutionary, but it's not. I want to create 5 new relationships with people that just are looking for help. Like they come to me if they're willing, to have this year 5 new relationships I can pour into to help people, in whatever area of their life they're needing help. And then just personally, I need to eat better. So I'm one of my goals is to begin to eat better and then to become more active. I need to be more active.
Well, for me, it's always to become the best person that I can be. And by doing that, like I said, I want to put down the technology and read more. Like, my problem is, like, you sit down and you watch a little TV, or you scroll on your phone, and it's like a half hour later I could have been reading a book.
Mm.
And I want to change that part. I want to keep on finding. I'd like to find 5 new guests that can influence me more. I mean, I use your 5, but I
That's
actually
fine.
need to find. I actually need to find 52 guests to keep influencing me. But
Listen to you.
but and then I want to lift the people up around me. I want to start. I actually want to go hunting with my camera a little bit more in the
Mhm.
summer and spring, and a little bit in the fall
Yes.
if I don't have a license, because I think that brings me peace. And I want to work on relationships internally and externally. And
Mhm.
I mean that, like, try to keep strengthening my relationship with my wife and my friends around me, and not be afraid to say, "Oh, they're busy, so I'm not going to call them or text them." Kind of that, like we
Don't
talk.
overthink it. Don't overthink it. Just do it.
But I'm happy though, because when we talked about it earlier, I am that external thinker where I will go ask your advice, and because I do know when I say too much or not enough. And how do you think somebody felt like that, even though I said something stupidly that I think was stupid?
Hmm.
Like, maybe they took it in the wrong context when I wasn't trying to be snarky, but
Mhm.
maybe it came across as snarky.
Right.
But I'm, I want to. I had a guy that I worked with. He just retired, and him and I would have these long conversations, like once a week in his office, just going back and forth about life, about God, about everything. And I enjoyed those conversations. So I hope we can. He's retired, but I hope we can he stops being so energetic now that he's retired, and we can start having these conversations because he's never home now for a while.
Right.
And I'd like to do some stuff with my dad. I mean, he's busy, but that's the way it is. And just go see things and do a little more traveling. Like, I think Cindy and I are going to go out to see the elk in the refuge and do something different. Like you were talking about being open-minded, I want to be out of the box traveling too. Like,
Do something uncomfortable?
do something, well, not so uncomfortable, but go to places that I normally wouldn't. I'm not saying I want to really go to, at this time, I really don't want to go to cities, but I'd rather go to some place maybe that I haven't thought of. I just saw, like, I think it was in the Moab area, or Bryce Canyon or somewhere. I'd like to go on some hikes down where I normally wouldn't go. And reason I'm saying where I normally wouldn't go is I wouldn't go to these places because there was no end result, as I'm not going hunting.
Oh, yeah.
There was always a
Talked
hunting
about that.
trip at the end of the,
Right.
and now let's just go to enjoy the area, not that there's an end result. The end result is feeling good about yourself and the people you are with. And I've saved up, I'm able to roll over a little more vacation time this year so I can go do that. That's what was my main goal of some of this stuff, is like rolling over a little more vacation time to go. And I'm not one of those people that likes to, like, a 2-week trip is long for me,
that's too long.
because I
can't
love
handle
being
that.
home too.
Yeah.
Like, a long weekend is a good time for me to go somewhere and
Yeah.
enjoy it and then come back.
Yeah.
But those are things I want to do and I want to do it with many people,
Yes.
because I want to enjoy the life that we have with so many people and enjoy these adventures and enjoy the time and the conversation. And I personally keep on, like, just really want to have these cool conversations and improve myself by thinking out of the box, like how you think, Kelley, and how you think, Ashley, and how this other person thinks, and then when they come up and tell you, like, you made me think, and then we have a conversation, that is some of the most awesome conversations you can have.
Yeah.
So I hope we go in those directions. I hope
Yeah.
hope life goes good.
Well, I don't think we need to talk about the good life, because I think you guys were more extensive. I didn't know how extensive we needed to be here, but you talked about it, because all the time we've talked about surrounding yourself with good people and spending time with them, and, working hard and playing hard. That is the good life. And that's wrapped up into 2025. Now we're just going to do it.
Yep.
It is. And you know how you can improve your life?
Oh,
You can go have a long conversation in Oaks, North Dakota with Kelley.
absolutely.
I don't know if that's true.
I didn't know where this was going. I was
I didn't either.
Where are we going?
I'm telling you, we're going to have to set this up.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. There's nothing like being in person.
No,
Yeah.
we might have to do it when it's not 50 below in North Dakota and the wind snow blowing.
It's actually supposed to get nice here in a week. So
yeah,
it's
I've been
cold
in
right now,
Fargo
but
one time where it was that cold, and I was like,
yeah,
how does
it can get cold.
anybody do this? This
It
is
is hard to
mind
function.
blowing. Yeah, it's take your breath away, can't move, don't want to leave the house,
Exactly. Yep.
So, well, I want to thank the Rick-tastics for being with me tonight.
Absolutely happy to be here.
And I want to tell
It's an honor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because I want to tell our listeners, this is going to be a regular thing. If I can get some, or if you guys can tell me some cool thoughts to have conversations about, like you came to me about the relationship one. I had the 24 hours to live one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hit a few people more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
because we had great conversations there, and all the conversations we have. I'm going to tell you. I think I told you maybe before, but over the holidays, I had friends that and listeners that were traveling, and they listened to our conversation. They said some of the ones that we had in the 24 hours to live was one of the ones that we really had a lot of conversation about. And they said, you guys need to talk a little bit more, I mean, because
Yeah.
we come out of left, we have so many different perspectives, and nobody is trying to overtalk anybody, that we
Yeah.
have a good conversation and people enjoy that. So they can think out of the box too. So I want to thank you guys, the Rictastics are doing some Rictastic stuff.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Rick-tastic.
Well, I do. I like having these conversations, and then when you have it like out in public, because we've had it, it does seem like people aren't scared to bring up something that you would never bring up ever
Right.
in a normal conversation. It's like, hey, I heard you guys talking about this. I'd like to ask you about that. And that is really cool to me, because that way, if we can have a conversation or just make someone feel better, whatever it might be, or have them think, oh, I did this differently within this relationship, that's huge. Like I said, it only takes one. It only takes
just one. It's all
it
worth
does.
it.
Yeah, for one it is.
It is. So thank you guys for these stimulating conversations, and we're going to have a lot more through 2025. So that's my goal.
There's the goal.
Yes. There it is. I'm in.
So,
I'm in like Errol Flynn, baby.
All right. Well, don't die, Rusty family. Keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die, Rusty.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.